Brother Muammar Gadhafi, inshallah, is coming to America. So I was called to Libya 2 weeks back to back because they know that the strongest supporter of Muammar Gadhafi is the black community. In August, I went to Libya, and there was a religious conference, and I went to represent Minister Farrakhan at the conference, 65 Muslim scholars from throughout the world, Islam. So I'm at this conference, so the conference is going well, so we get a call, Brother Gadhafi wants to see all 65 scholars. So we go to his tent. And then they pick 4 people who had to speak to him and address him. One from Asia, one from Africa, one from Europe, and one from North America. By default, I ended up being, because I was the only one from North America. And plus, you know, my relationship with them over the years. So when I got up, you know, we called him in Libya, Dear Leader. I said, Dear Leader, I held up that magazine with Barack on the front looking like Osama bin Laden. And they hadn't seen it in Libya. I said, this is the attack coming against him because there's a possibility that he could win. This is August 2008. So, and I explained to him how he could win, and Gadhafi just sat there and listened. So after the meeting was over, he spoke to us, and I was leaving. He told the brothers to get Akbar. I come back in and I sit down with him, and so we asked me about Barack. So he said, do you think he can really win? He's talking to me through his translator. I said, Dear Leader, I think he can win. He said, I don't think so. He said, the American people would not vote him in. So we went back and forth, and I was telling him why, and he said, I don't think he could win. So when Barack won, now I leave Libya, Barack wins, so he has the headlines of the Libyan papers. The leader's vision, the leader's words are fulfilled, and his words are in the Green Book. I got one here. His words are in the Green Book. This period in history that has known slavery was that which witnessed the white man enslaving the black race. This period shall remain vivid in the minds of black people until they regain their self-respect. This tragic historical phenomena that is painful to remember, and black people's psychological search for a satisfactory way to deal with this past and to regain their self-respect, is a psychological incentive that cannot be disregarded in the movement of the black race to avenge itself and triumph. So he considered the election of Barack a triumph, and that his position that the black man would come to the top is that the most powerful political position in the world is now in the hands of a black man. So I would have liked to see him at that. After our dialogue, he said, I don't think it could happen. But when it did happen, he went to the Green Book and made sure that everybody said, he said, I predicted that this would happen. And this So he's coming to America. Now, while I was in Libya, you know, things changed. The release of the National, Abdul Basit from England. How many heard about that? This is a picture of Barack Obama meeting with Brother Muammar Gadhafi. How many saw this picture? Raise your hand. How many saw it? Did they show it in America? On the internet, but was it in the daily papers? See? I'm showing you how they control the press. Because there's a group of people who use the internet for all of their news, but there's a group of people, my age category, we like the feel of paper. I mean, it just gives us a certain kind of feeling. And we can read it on the internet, but we just like paper. And there's some people who don't read the internet. So you miss a whole body of news and information. We only have about 4 or 5 of them, and I'm going to make them available. This is the Tripoli Post, the brother that published it. So now, if he comes to America, they're pushing now for Barack Obama not to meet with him in light of the release of this prisoner. But let me say this, in all fairness, why did they have the celebration? I got a call from one of my good friends. They said, why didn't they just release him quietly and let him go home? Why did they have to have all of that big celebration? And American England told the Libyan officials to make it quiet. But there was a spontaneous response from the people because they believe, and in their hearts and mind, they know that he's an innocent man. Now you have to know the history of this, and I'm going to do it briefly, and then we're going to close this out. What matters most? When the Vincent shot down a Iranian Airbus with 272 Hajis on it over the Gulf, right between Dubai and the Iranian coast, and they said it was a mistake. Then in the Arab and Islamic culture, then the retaliation is prescribed for you in the matter of the slain. And that's not just a made-up statement, it's in the Holy Quran. So the Iranians who lost 272 people, and the Americans said we made a mistake. But they have a book, a manual, and a computer that tells them all of the planes that moved that are commercial planes, so that they know they're not war planes. There's a schedule for them. So the plane is shot down, all of those people died. So the Iranians demanded retaliation or blood money. And those who know Arab culture, you know what I'm talking about. So when it first happened, a whole story on this was in Newsweek magazine. 2 books were written on it. On the Trail of the Octopus, you look them up. On the trail, one of them they banned from America. So it said that the Iranians paid $10 million to a group to take this plane off. And I don't want to go into the group and whatnot, you know, because I know that I'm being recorded. And so they paid a group. This group they feel, and the Americans feel, were the ones responsible for Pan Am 103. Because, you know, they have a belief, you kill my dog, I kill your cat. Okay? So they took the plane down, but the convenient country to blame was Libya. 2 men were put on trial. It's almost like the death of Malcolm. At that Audubon ballroom, 2 men were taken into prison. One was shot, wounded in the leg, Talmadge Hainer, and another one that the police arrested. Go back and get the New York Times from that day, the next day, February the 22nd, 1965. But the other man disappeared completely. You never heard about him again. What happened to him? Where was he at? Was there some kind of conspiracy and they needed to get him out of the picture? So 2 men were charged. Now how could 2 men in their indictment say that these 2 men are Libyan intelligence agents, they're guilty, but the Scottish court found one innocent and sent the other to prison for natural life? Then when I was in Libya, now I was there the day that he came in, just Thursday of this week. I left the next morning, Friday, and the man got prostate cancer because of what his treatment in prison. It's like Kwame Ture. Kwame was walking around with it. At 57 years old, we lost him because he wasn't diagnosed properly. If they would have caught it earlier, he could have been treated and he may still be with us this day. But they just let it go until the cancer went through his body. But the other thing is that the battle for 44 billion proven reserves of oil that Libya has, the largest amount of oil in all of Africa, and maybe larger than oil in a lot of Middle East countries, America and Britain are fighting over that oil. So the British, 2 British prime ministers went to see Gadhafi. Tony Blair and Brown. And they say, and you can read it now because it's all over and they're trying to backtrack it, they say it was an oil deal. The Libyans say every time they came to negotiate, they brought up their prisoner. We'll do business with you on this oil, but you got to send our national back home. Even if he comes home to go to prison, we don't want him to spend the rest of his life in a Scottish jail because we believe that he is innocent. So the oil deal, even though this Judge McCaskill say he takes full responsibility, Gaddafi's son Saif, who's a young guy, he said that it was a deal that we made and that's why they freed him, so that they would have access to the oil over the Americans. You say, would they do something like that? They sent 4,500 young boys to their death in Iraq over oil, not over Saddam Hussein, not over whether he had nuclear capability, because after 9/11 they wanted to kick Saudi Arabia to the curb, but Saudi has given us so much oil and you can't kick Saudi to the curb unless you got another supply, and the most proven reserve of supply of oil that equals Saudi Arabia is in Iraq. So 4,500 young Americans went to their death in Iraq over what? Not over Saddam Hussein was going to bomb America, not that he was involved in 9/11, but because they wanted the oil reserve. So do you think that they are beyond that? They are not beyond it. And that's why President Obama came in and saying that is a war that should have never been fought, a war we should have never been in, and I'm drawing the troops out of it. He can't say all of it because he got to protect the interests of America, but in reality the war in Iraq and the death of those young Americans was over the oil. That's why when they bombed Baghdad, the only building remained intact was what building? The Ministry of Oil. They didn't want to touch that because they wanted to continue that oil flow. But it ricocheted and backfired on them. Now they're in a quagmire and they want to get out of there. So Africa becomes the target for the oil, and Libya is number one. So they have to smooth these relationships. What matters most? But you got to be up on the news. And why do you have to be up on the news? Akbar, that's not important. I just read my Quran. There's a Chinese proverb that says, "Oh God, save me from the man or woman of one book." Okay? So all you got is one book, and you're so narrow. Even those who read the Quran read a hadith to bring some balance to what they read. So in this article, Remnick wrote about the Joshua. It's a very beautiful article. He's running through Barack's life, and he reaches this point about Barack's reading and the reading that made an impression on him. He said that he read W.E.B. Du Bois, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, and then he gives a description. This is an excellent part in the article. He said one retreated to Harlem, to the bowels of Harlem, Langston Hughes. Another retreated to Europe, James Baldwin, going to France. Another retreated to Africa, W.E.B. Du Bois went to Ghana where he died. He said, but all of his reading, Barack said the book that made the greatest impression on him was Malcolm X's autobiography. Now that's in the article. So if he read Malcolm's book, now if you read Malcolm's biography, the part that grips you is where Malcolm walks through his life. He's a thug, like many of our young brothers in the street want to be gangsters. And you know, I'm deaf on that gangster syndrome. I'm John Gotti, I'm Frank Nitti, I'm the Black Mafia. All of that madness, you know. And so Malcolm was a thug. He goes to jail. His brother Reginald brings him, said, you want to get out of here, so and so and so and so, and the white man is the devil. And Malcolm was fighting against it, but it sent him to the library. He began to read, and then he begins to accept. And so Malcolm emerges from jail and goes to work for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he changed his whole life around. And he had an impact. So if Barack Obama, thank you brother, if Barack Obama read that, and it was the book that had the greatest impact on him, the writer goes on and said that he had to be torn. If he was reading Malcolm, and Malcolm was down on white folks, and his mother was white and his father was black, he was a torn soul in between the two, but he found his balance and his direction. And when he started campaigning, I was with the minister one day. I said, you know, brother minister, he kind of reminds me of Malcolm. And the minister said, well, Akbar, don't you be saying that publicly now. This was during the campaign. Say, white folks are already afraid of him. But now look at it. Look at, he's left-handed, but look at the finger. Malcolm with his finger. Right, Kareem? Right, his Malcolm with that finger. Okay, Malcolm doing this here. Then that smile. And he walks like a brother. You know, sometimes when brothers get educated, they start shortening. But Barack walks like this. So this is what's in him. So now, because he's not saying reparations now, you understand, and wearing a dashiki and got his fist in the air, this is a sophisticated game. But what he needs is your backing. See, at these radio talk shows and these people going to rallies with guns and the attacks on him, the birth certificate, he's not really an American. Where's our voice in this? Where's our press conferences and saying that we feel that there are people who are racist in America and they're upset that they got a smart man in the White House? At least, listen, at least we got a president that carries a book and reads. We had a president for 8 years that didn't read nothing. His wife had to teach him how to say Chechnya, had to show him where to go in the world. I mean, he didn't have a clue. Now you got a bright, smart president and they upset because he's a black man.